Hey everyone, welcome to the GTM.news show. I got Jordan Crawford here today. Thanks, Jordan, for joining me.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. Well, kind of give the audience some context. Jordan and I have actually been following you probably for a year and a half now. Seen you around the interwebs, and most recently came across a post you posted in a Pavilion community Slack group. And it was all around this idea of your company, Blueprint, does what I'm kind of coining, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit today, is almost like hyper personalization at scale. In the context of really outbound strategies, cold email in particular. So today we're going to be talking a bunch about that. I think your strategy, your approach is pretty unique. I haven't come across your process before. So one thing that came up, kind of first question we can talk about is, and you have a video, I think, on YouTube on this, which I watched, which is kind of having a pain versus persona when it comes to outbound, cold email, that whole world. Let's start there, Jordan, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, well, thanks so much for. I mean, it's a little. It's interesting to be reminded how long I've been posting content on LinkedIn, and so I'm grateful that you've been watching my stuff. Yeah, the thing I think that a lot of teams get wrong about just thinking holistically about their go-to-market is that they're targeting incorrectly. And this is usually because the data sets that you have access to are not really aligned to the problem that you solve. And so this is like you'll download a list from ZoomInfo, right? And you'll say, I care about companies that are 10 to 1,000 employees that are in the United States. And it's like, okay. So, what you used to do is you should be able to just spam all those folks, right? Well, that doesn't work anymore. And outbound is much, much harder. And the thing that you need to think about is, what is the perfect list for me? And the best way to reverse into this question is really assume that your founder, the person with the most context on who you sell to, had unlimited time for research to build a list. Right? Unlimited time to look at the company website, look at public data sources, look through LinkedIn, look through content. Like, it doesn't actually matter where that information is. What is the perfect email that they would write? And then what you need to do is reverse into, how do I get that data at scale and enrich a company with that information? And if you do that, then you have eliminated most of those companies in your TAM, because you have said, I know A, B, C, D, E, F, and G about these companies. And together it paints this really, really rich picture that if you were to audit this list, if you were to look at 9 out of 10 of these domains, the founder, the head of sales, the head of CS, the person that knows your customer best, like, that is our exact customer. And that's what teams are doing wrong, is that they're not investing in that scoring mechanism. They're not thinking about it from the other way, which is not personalization. It's targeting, not personalization. Personalization is a token word that is about, how do you talk that Jordan has a blue hat? Oh, Jordan, you have a blue hat. Do you want to buy my SaaS? It's like, no, it has nothing to do with your problem. And there's a lot of AI tools that'll do this for you. So I think that that's the crux of the issue, is that we don't spend enough time on both data and first principle scoring of which companies at what stage in their sort of pain journey, if you will, need you now.
Fascinating. I like that differentiator between kind of hyper targeting versus hyper personalization.
Yes.
Thanks for clarifying that. I'm already going to change the title of the podcast now. But that's great. Thanks for sharing. And yeah, I think I can totally relate in my journey of go-to-market strategies and whatnot with it, which has been, especially with data, where I feel like, with the ZoomInfos of the world, that was almost a competitive advantage 10 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And now everyone has access to it. There is 1,000 ZoomInfo providers out there. And so now what's your competitive advantage when it comes to your outbound strategy? So let's get into kind of some of the nitty gritty. I'd love for you to share with the audience what specific campaigns, maybe what sort of criteria has been super helpful in that targeting. Love to kind of dive deep into that.
Well, I want to talk, I'm going to give you an example, but before I do that, I'm going to talk about a way for you to invert your thinking about targeting.
Okay.
These large company lists from the ZoomInfo, the Apollos of the world, they're great as bowling lanes. They will not help you get a strike, but they will make sure that you don't throw your bowling ball into the ceiling, right? You're like, all right, this is you're not going to go over 4 lanes over and get into Terry's lane, right? That's a great data set to just say, for sure, not these companies, right? So it's like, it's here, but I don't know where in here it is. But then you need to invert your thinking from a problem-based targeting and not a company-based targeting. And so, like, for example, my company scrapes jobs. So every day we look at hundreds of thousands of websites, say, what are they hiring? Now, the unsophisticated seller would say, oh, they're hiring a bunch of BDRs. Go after them, right? Well, let's think about Orem, for example. They're like an AI call tool. It's not just a sales team, right? It's a sales team that does a lot of cold calling, right? So you're looking for cold calling in a lot of their reps. You're looking for the number of reps that they're adding. You might even look at the number of reps they already have on the account to understand how advanced is their sort of cold calling. You might even look for keywords that say, start cold calling, or like cold calling campaign. A head of sales position might say hire reps to help with cold calling, right? So you know where they are on their journey. And then inside those job descriptions, there's a lot more nuance, which it'll talk about things like, think about the software. So like really advanced teams that are doing really heavy cold calling are using words like auto dialer, or they're thinking about like callbacks, or just they have a bunch of other specific keywords that talk about cold calling specifically. So when I build TAM lists for my customers, I look at my jobs data and I say, let's look at all of the companies that mention any slew of these keywords to identify how advanced of callers are they, what types of technology are they using, and that level of targeting not only helps eliminate a lot of companies, but it gives you messaging for free because you can speak about the problems they're talking about. A job description is $100,000 hand raise that say, I have a big problem, and here are all the specifics of my problem. So this is just one way that you can invert your thinking from building company lists to building problem-based lists of companies.
I love that. Thanks for sharing it. It's almost like the thing I keep on thinking about as you talk through identifying almost different. It's almost like a maturity level of pain. Like, what's their pain maturity, right? Is it more, maybe in the case of the BDR situation, is it maybe more of a rudimentary, maybe more of a legacy, or are they actually more, are they further along the maturity model, and then talking to that pain depending on where they are in that particular pain. And then the data set of job descriptions is pretty cool as far as being able to then take all of that and then, tailor your messaging to their specific needs.
Yeah. And the other thing I will say too is that you're not going to speak to a company that has just started cold calling the same as you will one that has a whole team that is scaled that motion up, that has, right? You're not going to say like, have you thought about a system to like record your calls? And they're like, come on, like you're going to read that as a receiver of that message and think like, did you not do any research on me? Whereas if you send a message to that person, they're doing the most advanced cold calling tactics, and you say like, hey, Jordan, other teams like you were doing these exact same tactics, but what they didn't know is A, B, C, and D. And you're like, whoa, like I didn't know that. And we're the top of our game. So you can take information, and this is something that other people get wrong, is that in go-to-market teams, they think it's a game of attention when now it's a game of education. And really showing versus telling. And that all comes from your existing customers. And to give you like another flavor, I have a customer right now that they do their e-com ML checkout tool. So basically you go to one of these large retailers and they're running like thousands of ML tests, like determine when they should offer $5 off, right? $10 off or 10% off, right? Well, you can imagine the first cut of their TAM is like any e-commerce company doing over $10 million a year or whatever, right? Well, the best thing I can say with that information is, hey, Taylor, I saw you're making money. I have machine learning thing. Can I have some of your money? Like, that's like the best thing I could say because that's all I know about you, right? Well, let's get a layer deeper. What we're doing for them is like, Do they have pop-ups on their site? Do the pop-ups mention % off or dollars off? Do they have strike-throughs in their pricing? Do they have limited time sales? If you go to the checkout, are there what kind of elements are on the checkout, right? So now I know which brands are discounting. I can then enrich with traffic, right? So it doesn't matter if, you know, you can't use this product if you don't have a lot of traffic, right? Not enough experimentation, right? So I have that additional layer. Then I can also go and match categories. So I can pull categories of products out, which is like, okay, do categories that they have data on match with categories that you're selling, right? And so you can kind of imagine that as you peel back the layers of the onion, you can start to say something like, hey, Taylor, I saw that you sell men's hoodies, specifically this brand of fat hoodie. And I don't know if you know this, but we've run 23,568 tests on this exact hoodie. And it turns out that if you give 5% off in these conditions, that you'll have a 120% increase in your cart checkout rate. This is one of a million things that I know. I'll send you 6 more for free after running checkouts on X number of campaigns. Take it, go. Like, enjoy this, right? And so you can start to see now, I don't have to say anything about machine learning. I don't have to throw any buzzwords. I don't have to be like, can we get on a call, please? I'll do anything. I'm begging you, please take a call. I'm like, here's some value for you that's based on my earned insight that my customers have trusted me to find for them. Maybe you might trust me here, but if not, go and try this on your own. So I'm surfacing the data that customers have, that my customers have about their customers to the market.
That's so cool, Jordan. Like we're now getting into this kind of almost phase 2 or this next level of what I think your approach is super awesome. I think number one is obviously the hyper targeting, right? Which is what we've already talked about of like, hey, finding folks that are the perfect fit and matching up, whether it's just data that's public available data off their website. And I'm sure we can talk, maybe if we have a few more minutes today, we can talk more about the other data sets you use to kind of be able to have that hyper targeting. But in addition to that, you're doing, and I've actually been even recently, I'm sure you're familiar with zero-click content on social media.
No, I've never heard of this phrase.
So this is an idea that actually SparkTuro, which is a great company, I recommend everyone following, great product.
Yeah,
it's a SEO research product. They've coined this term. I don't know if they've coined it, but they've definitely popularized it. The idea is you create content that requires that's in-app consumption. The idea is that you create it for that medium, right? So if you're creating content on social media, don't send them to a website to download an ebook, or don't send them to YouTube or whatever. Create it for that platform so they can consume it easily, consume it quickly. They get the value. You build that brand repetition and all that fun stuff. What you're doing is you're creating zero click content for email outbound, where you're actually providing value through email. And this is, I love this concept. And I've actually used a similar concept in almost what I kind of coined, which was like an inbound outbound approach, where we would basically send content to prospects, like invite them to a webinar, and you're doing exactly the same thing, but you're saying, hey, here's what you can do. Here's what we've done for other folks, right? Building that reputation, building that brand awareness, but then you're also providing value outside of ever even having to book a meeting, outside of ever even having to engage with the brand. You're just helping them in the email, and no one else is doing that. I haven't received one cold email where somebody is like, here's some free knowledge, maybe an invite to a webinar, right? I've seen a little bit of that. Invite to an event. But I think it's super cool, Jordan. Like this has to be where outbound and cold email goes, where instead of just asking for that meeting, which is what everyone's doing, you're actually providing value in that engagement.
Yeah, that's and this is not hard, it's just complex. So it's not, there's just 86 steps, which is like why my agency exists. It's like, look, you're not going to take these 86 steps, but I will. And so the challenge is right now is that to get a perfect idea of an email all the way to a shipped email, there's all this crap in between. It's like, well, deliverability, and like, are you hitting spam inboxes? And then like, how do you get the people? And like, how do you clean the data? And then how do you make sure the emails are good? And then how do you combine 3 or 4 different data sets? Like, this is complicated. So what people do is just like throw a bunch of SDRs at it. Just let a human figure it out. It's too complicated. Can't figure it out. But I think the new model is more invest in a data team, get an AI ML scientist, get a scraper, get one AE that's not paid on commission, that just you pay them some high hour, some high rate to like do the very, very last mile stuff or take the calls, etc. And you really need you need both kind of a data team as well as someone on the strategy side. And then you do kind of need an executor to be able to respond to folks, to like quickly, if you get a reply to the email, to cold call them, to like just like be on top of that reply as fast as possible. So there is still a human component as part of this. It's the very last piece of the mile. It's none of the research. It's none of the deliverability stuff. It's not like sending emails manually. So there's still a role for, of course, sales to play, but really it's doing a lot of that work ahead of time, the research, the data. And then once you've done that, then you have to figure how do you get that market to message and deploy across channels, right? You had mentioned this before the show. It's like, how do you then operationalize that? Well, the first step is to narrow that, really, really, really narrow that TAM. So it's like, if an expert looked at 50 domains in your list, they're like, perfect. Like that's the bar.
I love it. Super cool. So tell me about, so we've kind of talked about the strategy, and I think I'm definitely aligned. The strategy is awesome between the hyper targeting and then also that providing value through that email, through that cold email exchange. Tell me about what are the other kind of sticking points of like what's even from your agency, like obviously creating the strategy is one part of it. There's the data piece. What are the other building blocks that are hard to execute? From your end, and where does your agency really provide value in that?
That's a great question. I think the very hardest thing is finding a person that really has a good view of the person's market. I'll work with. I won't call him out by name because we have a friendly feud. We like each other, but he's always giving me hell. But he's a very prominent market leader, and I'm like, who's your perfect? They had a new product. I'm like, who's your perfect fit? He's like, Jordan, it's like every SaaS company. And I was like, get out of here. Like, you leave the room. So I went to the founder. I'm like, come on, man. Well, who is really this? And he's like, well, it's these categories, and it's only companies with a demo, and it's only companies that are selling into the mid-market, and it's only companies that have a complex demo that they have to give to the mid-market. So you can see much more nuanced thinking, right? And sales reps don't have this because they're incentivized wrong. So the first thing is, like, before all the tactics, you have to have someone, it's usually the founder that has been punched in the face, like, oh, we tried that niche, we tried that niche, we tried that niche. Maybe it's who's ever closest to the customer is really the person that has this understanding. And then you should sit with that person, and you need to extract everything they see when they do research. But then once you do that, you usually need bespoke scraping with some ML, ideally, to score websites. There's for almost none of my customers is there a database that I can go to that will give me that clarity for them. So that's really important. You need to sit on a data set like Apollo to be able to get people data and domains, just like to pull domains and score them. You probably need access to a tool that you can run more complex SQL queries on something like Apollo to be able to, because generally you want to ask questions like, give me all the companies with more than 5 account executives in the United States where they have hired their head of sales in the last 3 months, and in their job description, it talks about, you'll be our first sales leader, right? Like, oh, okay. That like nuanced poll, Apollo is probably the closest that you can get to something like that, but that's the level of thing that you need to do. Then you need a mechanism to test messaging. And I know we had talked about sort of ChatGPT. ChatGPT is going to be absolutely awful if you say, write a sales email given my benefits. What it'll do is it'll take the worst version of every blog you've ever seen and give you a worse version than that. And so you need to write a message and then throw in something like I have a rubric. I've got a 10-step rubric. It's like, and I asked ChatGPT, I said, take this rubric and grade this email. Do not tell me how to fix it, because ChatGPT shit the bed when I asked it to do that. I said, just critique this email. Is it engaging? Is the subject line an incomplete thought? Yes, give them 10 points. Like, is there like at least a little bit of humor in this thing? Give them 10 points, you know? So that's the kind of way you should use ChatGPT, and to shorten what you've already written. But you should really write a message that is like super casual. Weirdly, I don't think that you need all of this, like I used to do a lot of like number stuff, like this and this. I think if you get the targeting right, you can get away with any of that stuff and write a much more casual message. Hey, Taylor, I saw that you have this thing on your page, you know, here's some stats here. So really people data, good company data, you need a good scraper. You maybe need an outsourcer to do some additional cleaning. And then you need someone that is going to look with a meticulous fine-tooth comb when that data comes back, before just like pushing the go button. And that person should not be incentivized in a like closed one sort of way, because they need to like, and then I will say the only thing, this is how I talk about my agency, is like fast shipping is what I sell. I sell fast testing. Every week we send it a playbook every week. So it takes about a month for us to build up some of the infrastructure for you, but then every week we ship. So it's like, we may get it wrong, but I'm going to get it wrong very fast. And I'll tell you what you think is your best perfect fit customer with the best email. I'll tell you if you got it right. I'll tell you if the market cares about your problem.
Super cool. I love that. I think two things that stood out is, first, I think the ongoing problem of, or opportunity of identifying what your TAM is something that every organization I've ever talked to, every company I've worked in has struggled with, or it's a constantly evolving thing. So I think what I'm curious about is, when you've worked with your clients, when you've gone through this process of figuring out the hyper targeting, and how has that influenced other teams, for example, product teams, or even kind of the overall go-to-market strategy? You kind of just hinted at it right there, as far as like, I'll tell you if, you know, this is working or that's not working. How has, you know, even going through this process influenced the rest of the go-to-market strategy, specifically even product, right? Like, you know, how are they developing the product for the market?
Well, I wish I could tell you that I was a genius at like helping organizations take this data, but I'm usually just the guy in the basement, like, I'm going to run this crazy thing, you know? So like, if I had a magic wand and I could tell my customers, stop everything you're doing and like, trust me, which I don't know that they would do that, but if they would do that, this is what I would do with the data. I would say, great, we already know we've scored your entire TAM. We have nuance about your entire TAM. And in that nuance, we've also matched it to your insights. So that means that everything that you do can be 10x better. You can run, you can go pull all of the people, get their personal emails, and run ads. So they can see an ad that says like, trying to get better conversion rates on your men's jumbo hoodies. Like, here's the way to increase your conversion rate by 206%. So that's the ad that you can send to only the decision makers at only the companies that only sell hoodies. When they click on this, you can spin up a bunch of pages that have every domain in your TAM for programmatic SEO, and they can go in and see what you know about their business. So like, hey, Taylor, here's a website that is just for you, that is just for your e-commerce site. And here are the things that are matched on my data. Here's the 68 things that you could be doing better. And here are specific changes. So you can run programmatic ads. You can build programmatic SEO pages that are about your value. So anyone can come to your website, type in, and see content for them. So you don't have to be like, read my PDF and figure out how these 86 pages apply to you. It's like, I already did that work. Here's how it applies to you. You can run cold outbound. So you are now hitting people in all of the right channels. You're only hitting the people that you can sell to with messages about your problem, and you've started to deploy it to other channels. So you don't have to throw people to just throw stuff at the wall. This is a vision I haven't yet capitalized on with my customers because it is complex and it involves other things, and sometimes I don't play well with others. But I think that is, if I was the CEO at one of these companies, that's what I would do with my data.
I love it, Jordan. That's super cool. And I think there's what I heard is if you can figure out the targeting right, figure out the messaging right, which is what this unique process goes through, you can then influence things like I'm hearing a lot about like the term account-based marketing, right? Or even I bet there's opportunities for retention plays or expansion plays for CS, right? Taking that data, then using that to expand, and if they're going after a Fortune 500 company, they can now go after different offices, right? And use that kind of that positive feedback loop. Super cool. We've got a few minutes left. I'd love for you to kind of wrap up a small topic, which is kind of ROI. What do you look at? What are some kind of KPIs you look at when you're executing one of these campaigns? And I know there's a pretty broad spectrum depending on the type of organization that would use this, but maybe some KPIs of like, what are some things you look for? I know reply rate is one of them. But yeah, great.
I mean, I think that the first KPI I look at is just, are we landing in inboxes and are we getting replies? So it's like, first, like I have to know the inbox health is good. People are seeing the message. And then are we testing every week, right? Did we get it right? Did we get it right? Did we get it right? And so I really think about that throughput rate. Like, am I testing enough to know? And this is going to fail 9 times out of 10. Like the failure rate here is like, like I'm throwing a lot of words out here, but like generally when like rubber hits the road, you don't know your market really well. You don't really know, you don't know the problems that they're facing. You don't really have a good understanding. Like no one has a really perfect view of their customers or even a fuzzy view. And this is just like one way that I found to test it out. But generally, I'm looking for a 1% positive reply rate on campaigns. And if you're in a great market with a great problem where there's not a lot of competition, you do your targeting right, you could get 5%. But I try not to hinge on these numbers because I really just want to know, did I get some of the signal right? Like, am I getting the targeting right? And then I can improve that by going in other channels and that kind of stuff.
I love it. Yeah, and there's so many variables with ROI that it's and benchmarks are even not helpful because every situation is so different. And I love that as far as the constant testing.
I sell fast testing. That's what I do. Like
I love that.
I don't know. I don't know your market. I don't know your product. I don't know your audience. Like all I can give is like, if you think you know your audience, I could test that really quick and see if you got it right.
I love it. And marketing and sales and go-to-market in general, I think we probably fail more than any other department, and that's by design because you have to try a lot of different things to see what works and what works for your industry. So super cool. Jordan, thanks so much for coming on. How can people stay connected with you and get a hold of you?
I post a lot on LinkedIn. I do have a YouTube channel. I'm /Jordan Crawford or the original. I got the URL and nice. Just Jordan at blueprintgtm.com. So I'd be happy to take your emails there if you want to contact me.
Thanks, Jordan. Super worth a follow. Love your content and keep it up. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks.
Talk to you later.
Bye.